here we go. This from the Answers in Genesis article, and it's not in your show notes because I found it right before we came on air. And this is in the introduction of the article. And this I thought was really interesting because although I disagree with a lot of the article itself, this is what they say about the Hebrew Roots movement. Okay. They say, in recent years, an increasing number of Christians have adopted teachings associated with the Hebrew Roots movement, HRM. Properly defining this movement is difficult because it has no, now this is important. Properly defining this movement is difficult because it has no central hierarchy or leader and no official statement of faith for members to endorse. And this is one of the huge issues that we have, and one of the reasons that people are so upset. People consider themselves to be Hebrew Roots, and they just say, "Well,
it's a self adopted label."
Yeah, exactly.
It's an adopted label.
Well, it's not just self-adopted. People are projecting it onto other people, namely us.
Oh, I see what you mean.
So people are saying, "Well, you guys are part of the Hebrew Roots movement."
Without checking without
yeah, exactly.
Projecting onto people without checking it.
Right.
Running it by them.
Okay, so let's go on with this Answers in Genesis article.
That's fair.
They say, while this article will explain and critique some of the major teachings connected to this movement, we recognize that some adherents to the Hebrew Roots, okay, blah, blah, blah. Later on in the just a paragraph down, they say, it is difficult to document the movement's history because of its lack of organizational structure. Yeah, no doubt. But the modern Hebrew Roots movement has been influenced in some ways by the Seventh-day Adventism, I would agree with that, and this one is really important, and the Worldwide Church of God during the lifetime of its founder, Herbert W. Armstrong. Now, we're going to come back to that in just a second and talk about that. Additionally, the Hebrew Roots movement has been influenced by the practices of Messianic Jews. Now, the one thing that I think that they did right here, well, no, I shouldn't say that. I agree with all of what they're saying here. The one thing that I really appreciate, that's a better way to describe it. The one thing I really appreciate about this statement right here is that they have noticed a separation between Hebrew Roots movement and Messianic Jews, because I believe that there is a difference. Okay, so, so they say, additionally, the Hebrew Roots movement has been influenced by the practices of Messianic Jews, but the similarities between the groups are superfluous and should not be conflated. In fact, some Messianic Jewish organizations have denounced the beliefs of the Hebrew Roots movement. Exactly. And I think that this is one of the big problems with a lot of people within the Hebrew Roots movement is that they see Hebrew Roots movement as a blanket term like the word Christianity. Look, a Mormon will tell you that they're a Christian. Do I consider them a Christian? No, they believe in multiple gods. So what, not
only that, they believe.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of different things, but the point is that they just they're going to take the word Christian and say anyone who believes that Jesus is the Messiah is a Christian. In the same way, I believe that some people within the Hebrew Roots movement, of course, I don't want to make blanket statements myself, but some people within the Hebrew Roots movement have said anyone who believes that the Torah, that the law of God is applicable for Jew and Gentile today, and believes that Jesus is the Messiah, is in fact in the Hebrew Roots movement. And this is essentially what Answers in Genesis has done as well. So here's the first question I want to pose to you, Rob. And this is the one that we'll talk about. We can get the chat rooms joining in on this as well. Is everyone who keeps Torah and believes in Yeshua part of the Hebrew Roots movement?
I in my opinion, no, but I think there are people who would say yes.
Okay, so let's
and the reason I would say that just from the feedback we got, but I would say no. I would say my answer is no.
Yeah, I think we got a comment on this actually. Hang on, let me check the records. Oh yeah. James and Hannah, these guys were really gracious, by the way. I really appreciated their message. James and Hannah write in and they say, Shalom, brothers. By definition, you are both part of the Hebrew Roots movement. So you could interview yourselves if you would like to, Rob.
I should do that.
Oh, man, that would be hilarious. Okay, anyway, and I could set that up so that you were on both sides of the screen talking to yourself, by the way. That'd be really fun.
Okay, but by definition...
Yeah, whose definition? By whose definition?
Do they unpack that a little bit?
Well, let's
I
read.
love their sense of humor. I love the sense
Yeah,
of humor.
the sense of humor is great. Could you please stop maligning us and yourselves? Yes, there are unlearned and unstable people among us, but that isn't really anything different from the rest of Christian history. Okay, hang on. Stop right there. We're getting ahead of ourselves, but then why not just call yourself a Christian? If Christian history has always had little splits and big splits and whatnot and different factions, then why are you calling yourself Hebrew roots? Call yourself a Christian. If the blanket term has always been Christian, then why are we creating a new term in the first place? It doesn't make any sense to me.
What another strange thing is the idea, basically, and we heard from more than one. I mentioned this earlier. More than one stream of feedback was, look, you're misunderstanding Hebrew. It doesn't mean Hebrew language. It means Abraham the Hebrew. It means those who are called the Hebrews.
Go ahead.
But my point is here is that, okay, but even when you learn the language Hebrew in English, there's such thing as like the Hebrew root. In other words, the Hebrew root has to do with the root of a word, right? Like, what's the root? And when you learn a Semitic language, you learn that it's different than English.
Neam in the chat room, he says Hebrew means to cross over. Haven't we all crossed over from death to life? Haven't all Christians crossed over from death to life?
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine if someone wants to say that's. But then you're Hebrew. Then call yourself Hebrew or Hebrews.
Yeah, don't call
like
yourself
the
Hebrew.
Scripture.
Yeah.
Hebrew roots is not a biblical term. It's not defined by Scripture, and so therefore that's back to the answer in Genesis point. I think is that look, it's a new innovated term without a clear definition and different groups promoting it, and so that's the difficulty. The word Christian is actually in Scripture and actually has a historical grammatical meaning that can be defined and defended. It's not a made-up term.
Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking the subscribe button and check out more videos from Messiah Matters.